start, no? So we'll read the. Who will read? Yasmin, will you read? Tarika, good morning.
Yes, please. Shall I
Okay.
start?
Yeah, please.
Arjuna is the Kshatriya, the Rajasic man who governs his Rajasic action by a high Sattvic ideal. He advances to this gigantic struggle, to this Kurukshetra, with the full acceptance of the joy of battle as to a holiday of fight, but with a proud confidence in the right courseness of his cause. He advances in his rapid chariot, tearing the hearts of his enemies with the victorious clamor of his war conch. For he wishes to look upon all these kings of men who have come here to champion against him the cause of unrighteousness and establish as a rule of life the disregard of law, justice, and truth, which they would replace by the rule of a selfish and arrogant egoism. When this confidence is shattered within him, when he is smitten down from his customary attitude and mental basis of life, it is by the uprush of the tamasic quality into the rajasic man, inducing a recoil of astonishment, grief, horror, dismay, dejection, bewilderment of the mind, and the war of reason against itself, a collapse towards the principle of ignorance and inertia. As a result, he turns towards renunciation. Better the life of the mendicant living upon alms than this dharma of the Kshatriya. This battle and action, culminating in undiscriminating massacre, this principle of mastery and glory and power, which can only be won by destruction and bloodshed, this conquest of blood-stained enjoyments, this vindication of justice and right by a means which contradicts all righteousness, and this affirmation of the social law by a war which destroys in its process and result all that constitutes society.
Yeah. So this is again Surendra is stressing the importance that a man who is in a normal condition, not a spiritual man, nor even a thinker, he is not even a thinker, he is a practical man, he is a Kshatriya. At some point of life, for everybody, when you are in the body mind life, a crisis will come which will make you turn upwards. Okay? It may take a long time, you may struggle, so there is no war of reason. You believe you will be full of doubts and all that, but to everybody, a time will come. So this is Arjuna is facing a situation that everybody will face at some point or other in life. Okay, we take it for granted that everything is okay, everything is going smooth, but suddenly one day something will happen which will jerk you out of your very, very comfortable zone. Okay, you will see, you will start realizing that there is much more to life than what you had taken for granted. So this is what he is saying. So Arjuna is a Kshatriya. See, Surendra is repeating this again and again. The spiritual man's problems are different, but the problem of the practical man in the physical world, but who is not absolutely ignorant and living at the bodily life level, but he is living at the not even fully mental life, but he is a physical vital man who is using his principles of justice and righteousness and all, which is slightly sattvic principle. So that's what Swami is saying. He is mostly a rajasic man, but with a little touch of sattva in him. He is not absolutely sattvic. So I read the sentence. Arjuna is the Kshatriya, the Rajasic man who governs his Rajasic action by high sattvic ideal. And what is that high sattvic ideal? It's a moral concept that I have to fight for protecting the those who are to be protected. I have to fight for justice. I have to kill the evil. This is the dharma of the Kshatriya. Yeah, that's right. He advances to this gigantic struggle, to this Kurukshetra, with the full acceptance of the joy of battle as to a holiday of fight. Holiday of fight we have discussed before also. Uh, it is in the Gita there is no question of the holiday, but Srimdo adds a little bit of touch because he says, I could not understand this long time. I asked many people, how is Srimdo translating the holiday of a fight? But the answer comes elsewhere. A man usually, any man who is sensitive and who is adventurous accepts a challenge and wants to prove that he can get over it. Okay, so this is the, and they actually enjoy also the struggle. So this is the Kshatriya. He is fully aware of what he has to do and he does not bother too much about the difficulties that come. Okay, so they enjoy what they are doing. The Kshatriya should enjoy actually what his dharma is. That's why it's a holiday. There is a pleasure, there is a ananda in what he has to do. Even the difficulties actually evoke in man a sort of a sort of ananda, okay, sort of satisfaction. So that's why he's saying holiday of a fight. But with a proud confidence in the righteousness of his cause. He is absolutely convinced that the opposite are fighting for evil and that he is fighting the for the good, for the virtue, and they are on the side of sin. But there is one interesting thing if you notice how in this physical world the principle of dualities are there. Even on the Kaurava side, there are so many who are of a very high level. Like look at Bhishma, okay? He is so praised. Look at Karna, okay? Look at Dronacharya, who is who is the precept of the Pandavas as well as the Kauravas. So this world is a mixed world, the dualities. That's what is also indicated by this division of the in the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So now confidence in the righteousness of his cause. He advances in his rapid chariot, tearing the hearts of his enemies with the victorious clamor of his war conch. In the Gita, everybody starts blowing their conches. Okay, the start of the war. It's interesting also because this description of the war in Mahabharata is very interesting because it starts at a certain time and ends at a certain time. Just like in the ancient European countries, particularly in England, the knights had to fight. Okay? They would fight on two opposite sides. And after that, there's no more war. Here also, at sunrise, the war starts and it ends at sunset. And after that, there is no more war. You can even meet your enemies and even discuss things. So, but modern warfare is not like that. 24 hours it goes on. Destruction of the poor, destruction of children. It goes on. This concept is absolutely not there in this Kurukshetra war. Very interesting if one notices carefully. It is so well guided, and that's why in the West they had to bring in the Geneva Conventions to make war more humane. They had to do that, but in our concept it was already there. Okay, so he advances in his rapid chariot, tearing the hearts of his enemies with the victorious clamor of his war punch. For he wishes to look upon all these kings of men who have come here to champion against him the cause of unrighteousness and establish as a rule of life the disregard of law, justice, and truth, which they would replace by the rule of a selfish and arrogant egoism. So Surendra is giving not his own opinion, but he is saying what Arjuna is thinking. Okay. So Arjuna is thinking that this is I am fighting for truth and the others are fighting for the untruth, falsehood. When this confidence is shattered within him, now this is exactly what can happen to everybody at some point in life. It can come from a very unpleasant experience. It can also come from the natural development of the human being. But a time comes when you start reviewing your values and reviewing what your aim in life is. Otherwise, until then, when you are in your comfort zone, you don't question anything. Your business may fail, somebody in the family may pass away, somebody or something or other will happen. Okay? So then you start questioning everything. That's what now Arjuna is going to do. How can my values are, I have to stand up for truth and justice. But truth and justice does not mean that I can kill my own grandfather and I can kill my own teacher and I can kill my own cousins and uncles and in-laws. How can I do that? So he is absolutely caught in a great problem. When this confidence is shattered within him, when he is smitten down from his customary attitude and mental basis of life, it is by the uprush of the tamasic quality into the Rajasic man, inducing a recoil of astonishment, grief, horror, dismay, dejection, bewilderment of the mind, and the war of reason against itself, a collapse towards the principle of ignorance and inertia. Okay, he has given so beautifully the uprush of the tamasic quality. Now, there's one thing uh, which is there in the yogic practice. When you realize that your vital is not always following the truth, okay, and that you have to control your vital, okay, then there is a very strange thing that happens. Either the vital will go into a depression. Okay, all that I thought until now was right, now I find that it is wrong. So what can I do? I can't do anything, I am helpless. It will go into a depression. It will fall down. That's what is happening to Arjuna. But on the contrary, if the vital is a very strong and very active one, then it revolts. Okay? But here, Arjuna is revolting against the present condition, but his vital sinks. His even body sinks. He sits down and his body starts trembling. So this is what happens to the weak man. Weak necessarily not in the sense that bravery, but in the sense of the energy in oneself. Okay? So he is absolutely depressed and he falls down. Now, this is, let me digress a little bit because I am watching all the YouTube videos in India, what's happening today. Okay, there are many Muslim, not many, but quite a few, who are saying that this mindset of the Muslims to kill anybody, sar tan se juda, what they say, okay, behead everybody who is insulting the Prophet. So this mindset has been settled so much and it is so clearly a act of violence and hatred, but they don't even realize that it is hatred and it is something against an action which is not, is the most ungodly thing you can do. So there are many who are reassessing their religion. Okay, there are so many videos which are telling you that they have to look again at ourselves from hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, not thousands perhaps, but hundreds of centuries. The idea has been put into your head, and this is a mindset that has taken root, and that has to be now uprooted. There is a need for a complete change. It's not exactly related to Arjuna's case, but it is very similar. There is a time when everybody has to face this. Now the Muslim society is facing this crisis. They have to reassess all their values at a very low level. But here in Arjuna's case, it's not at a very low level. It's a very practical. So, and Srimad is using the word war of reason. On the one hand, reason is telling you that I am a Kshatriya, I have to fight, irrespective of whatever I have to fight. On the other hand, it's a sin to kill my own people. How can I do that? So it's a war against itself. Reason is giving pros and cons and is completely confused. And it results in what? A collapse towards the principle of ignorance and inertia. As a result, he turns towards renunciation. This is a problem that I cannot solve, so I get rid of the problem and I get rid of the situation which is creating the problem. I will not fight. Okay. That's what he's saying. Renunciation. And then he starts arguing and supporting his own decision. It's better the life of the mendicant living on alms than the dharma of the Kshatriya. It is better to be a beggar than to depend on dharma, which has completely deceived me. And it's no more applicable. So this dharma which I thought of the Kshatriya was absolute truth, it is not so anymore. Okay, he is puzzled. This battle and action culminating in indiscriminating massacre. How can the Kshatriya principle justify mass killing? It can't be possible. This principle of mastery and glory and power, which can only be won by destruction and bloodshed, this conquest of blood-stained enjoyments, Srimdev is almost translating all these blood-stained enjoyments, and this vindication of justice, the establishment of the proof of justice and right by means which contradicts all righteousness. You are trying to justify justice by injustice. You are trying to justify truth by falsehood. How can that be possible? By means which contradict all righteousness, and this affirmation of the social law by war which destroys in its process and result all that constitutes society. In society, we have the idea that Kshatriyahood and Brahmanhood, Kshatriya, these are all values which are absolutely valid in society, but you are destroying society itself. That's what he said. So he is in a great quandary. He doesn't know what to do. So now what is interesting is, Srimda will tell you in the next para, last para, that Sri Krishna, many people who would not think deeply will say, oh, Sri Krishna is going to support him. Sri Krishna is going to say, my God, you are absolutely right. Killing people is absolutely the most ungodly thing to do. You are absolutely right. But what does Sri Krishna do? He pulls him up and says, you are thinking wrong. Okay. So we'll read the last one. Sannyasa is the renunciation of life. Pallavi, you read?
Yes, Rangada.
Yeah, read the last one. Sannyasa.
Sannyasa is the renunciation of life and action and of the threefold modes of nature. But it has to be approached through one or other of the three qualities. The impulse may be tamasic, a feeling of impotence, fear, aversion, disgust, horror of the world and life, or it may be the rajasic quality tending towards tamas, an impulse of weariness of the struggle, grief, disappointment, refusal to accept any longer this vain turmoil of activity with its pains and its eternal discontent. On the or the impulse may be that of rajas tending towards sattva, the impulse to arrive at something superior to anything life can give, to conquer a higher state, to trample down life itself under the feet of an inner strength which seeks to break all bonds and transcend all limits. Or it may be the sattvic, an intellectual perception of the vanity of life and the absence of any real goal or justification for this ever cycling world existence, or else a spiritual perception of the timeless, the infinite, the silent, the nameless and formless peace beyond. The recoil of Arjuna is the tamasic recoil from action of the sattva rajasic man. The teacher may confirm it in its direction, using it as a dark entry to the purity and peace of the ascetic life. Or he may purify at once and raise it towards the rare altitudes of the sattvic tendency of renunciation. In fact, he does neither. He discourages the tamasic recoil and the tendency to renunciation and enjoins the continuation of action and even of the same fierce and terrible action. But he points the disciple towards another and inner renunciation, which is the real issue from his crisis, and the way towards the soul's superiority to the world nature, and yet its calm and self-possessed action in the world. Not a physical asceticism, but an inner ascesis is the teaching of the Gita.
That last sentence is the kernel actually of the Gita. Not physical asceticism, but an inner asceticism is the teaching of the Gita. In fact, in the Gita, the first word we have used in this paragraph is sannyasa. But there is another word, tyaga. So there are two ways of doing things, this sannyasa. That means the rejection. So it can be done by, yeah, tell me.
Ranga, the sannyasa and tyaga is almost the same? No.
But yeah, in the normal language, it is the same. Okay, giving up.
Same.
But the question
Yes.
is the subtler issue in the Gita. What are you giving up? And that's the whole question. Okay.
Mhm.
So the first one is you are giving up the physical world. You are saying all the values of the physical world are real. I withdraw into the mountain. I withdraw into the cave. I go into the forest. I want to have nothing to do with life, which is producing all these problems for me. So why should I remain in a place where I am having problems? I want to get rid of the problems, and therefore I get rid of the world itself. That is one. But the other one is you cut the connection psychologically within yourself, and then you
That is
continue to, yeah, then you continue to
that is
remain,
more tyaga.
yeah,
That is called
probably,
tyaga
okay,
more.
yeah, sannyasa, so putting down, sannyasa. So nyasa is putting down, okay, to place, nyas. Actually, that's what it means. So you can interpret in two ways. And now Srimda is saying the sannyasa, the rejection, can be done by the three powers of sattva, rajas, tamas. And it's a very interesting thing what he's saying. Finally, he tells you, he identifies Arjuna's recoil, what is the nature of that recoil. So let us see what he's saying. There are many, many interesting gradations. Sannyasa is a renunciation of life and action and of the threefold modes of nature. Threefold modes of nature. Threefold modes of nature? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. In other words, they correspond to the mind, the vital, and the body. These are the three modes of nature. Later on, in towards the end of the para, also he has used the word world nature. So, world nature is again Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, because there is a divine nature which is up. Okay, that is para prakriti, and world nature is the apara prakriti, the one that is below. Okay, that is nature. Nature below the world nature is unconscious and mechanical energy. But at the higher level, it is not mechanical and it is not unconscious. It becomes the divine mother, the power which is fully conscious of itself, and it is got knowledge and consciousness. It is not mechanical at all. Okay. So he is using the word here very clearly. Three modes of nature. So that's the sattva, rajas, tamas, the gunas of nature. But it has to be approached by through one or other of the three qualities. So now the rejection of the world can be tamasic. So the impulse may be tamasic. A feeling of impotence, fear, aversion, disgust, horror of the world and life. It can happen to a yogi also that he rejects the physical world because he finds it full of falsehood, evil, perversions, so he gives it up. So this giving up is a tamasic one. You withdraw with a disgust. This way is saying it's tamasic. Okay. It may be that one. Feeling of impotence. I can't deal with this problem. It's impossible to deal with the problem because the world is permanently imperfect. How to deal with it? I withdraw. Fear, aversion, disgust, horror. So it can come from any of these. A feeling of impotence or even a fear, my God, such a huge problem, how am I going to do it? Okay. Aversion, a disgust for the perversions and the falsehoods of the world, a disgust, horror of the world and life. Or the second type of rejection may be Rajasic quality. Okay, or it may be the Rajasic quality tending towards tamas. So it's a Rajaso tamasic withdrawal. And his description is that it is usually an impulse of weariness of the struggle. You have tried to solve the problem. Okay, so it is Rajasic. Then ending in impulse of weariness of the struggle, grief, disappointment, refusal to accept any longer this vain turmoil of activity, with its pains and its eternal discontent. I've tried so much to do something, I've tried so much, but I've failed. So, eternal discontent. It is only going to produce a dissatisfaction. So, I withdraw. That's the Rajaso Tamasic withdrawal. It can, Sridhar's description is very, very good because very, very detailed, because that's exactly what happens in yoga also. You turn to yoga because of all these things. Suddenly someone in the family dies, and then you say, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I've seen a very interesting case in Pondicherry. Okay, there was a young boy, and he was a graduate of the Indian Institute of Technology from Chennai. Okay, that time it was IIT Madras. It's one of the best schools. Today's newspaper says that IITM Madras is the best university for higher education in India. Okay, it has been ranked. So he was the product of that, and he was very, very charitably inclined. He used to run a small press to fund his activities for the poor. And in Pondicherry, the what is it called, the lighthouse area, okay, it's all, many lepers live there. So he opened a school there, okay, and he was teaching there. So he was very, very idealistic, this boy, very interesting boy. I knew him. And
Which one?
pardon? I don't remember his name, but I remember two of them were there. They came from Indian Institute of Technology. They could have earned lots, but they started doing this charity work. Then he got married, and his young wife, within a very short time, she died. So here is his crisis. Okay, it actually happened. I saw that, and he gave up everything and went away to the Himalayas. Nobody knew anywhere what he's doing. Okay, so this is a Rajasic, Tamasic recoil. He tried so hard to do something for society, and he found that it's not possible. The world defeated him, so he went away. So this is Sridhar's description of the Rajaso Tamasic. Okay, so or there is a third possibility. The impulse may be that of Rajas tending towards Sattva. In other words, not Rajasic recoil and ending downwards into tamas, but going upwards. Okay, I have tried so much, but I should try harder. I should go into sattva and not tamas. There is a third possibility. Impulse may be that of rajas tending towards sattva. Now, and his description, the impulse to arrive at something superior to anything life can give. So I don't recoil from life, but how to make this possible? Okay, how to get a solution to the evils of the world and the life in the world. So you go upwards and not downwards. To conquer a higher state, to trample down life itself under the feet of an inner strength which seeks to break all bonds and transcend all limits. I won't give up. I'll try and find a solution. Rajasic withdrawal aided by a little bit of sattva. Now, or the fourth possibility, or it may be sattvic, completely a sattvic principle, an intellectual perception of the vanity of life and the absence of any real goal or justification for this ever-cycling world existence, or else a spiritual perception of the timeless, the infinite, the silent, the nameless and formless peace beyond. So, the withdrawal from the world can be absolutely sattvic. In other words, you realize without being disturbed, because you are in the sattvic, you are without being disturbed, you watch and observe very carefully the imperfections of physical life, and you make a resolution that I must be able to solve this problem without being disturbed and without being discouraged. So that's the sattvic. And intellectually, it could be many. It could be an intellectual perception of the vanity of life and the absence of any real goal or justification. Okay. Now, this is very clearly the Buddha. Okay, he saw these four things done, or three things: death, disease, and old age, and he withdrew without being disturbed. I'll find a solution for it. an intellectual perception of the vanity of life and the absence of any real goal, and he found the solution by going to the higher level. That's exactly what Sridhar is saying here. So many different types of rejection of the world can come. Okay. I'm reading that sentence again. Or it may be sattvic. And the sattvic can come from many. It can come from an intellectual perception of the vanity of life and the absence of any real goal or justification for this ever cycling world existence, or else a spiritual perception of timeless. It can come also without the withdrawal from life. It can come from the perception of the timeless, infinite, silent. What is that? Obviously the self. And that's what happened to Sri Aurobindo. But he had the experience of the timeless, infinite, silent, but he did not reject the world. So there's so many different cases. Okay, in the case of Buddha, it was obviously an intellectual because he was not spiritually yet realized. Okay, so it was an intellectual perception. I must find a solution to it. In Sri Aurobindo's case, he was trying to get power, and he ended up in the nirvana experience. So it's a sattvic renunciation of the world. But he didn't renounce. That's the whole point. The recoil of Arjuna, now Sridhar, after all these 4 cases, he is telling you what is the nature of the recoil of Arjuna. The recoil of Arjuna is the tamasic recoil from the action of the sattva rajasic man. He was, to begin with, he was a sattva rajasic man. Okay? But he now recoils, he goes downwards. He falls from his standards and he is confused. The teacher may confirm it in its direction. The teacher can say, yes, you are right, absolutely right. Okay, using it as a dark entry to the purity and peace of the ascetic life. So, Sridhar is saying very clearly that even if you have a tamasic recoil, you can end up doing yoga, but sort of a negative yoga, because you will get purity, but you are recoiling from the physical world, which he does not really approve of. But it's one of the ways to get liberation. Okay, even a tamasic recoil can be lead to liberation. The teacher may confirm it in its direction, using it as a dark entry to the purity and peace of the ascetic life. Or he may purify it once and raise it towards the rare altitudes of the sattvic tendency of renunciation. It could go both ways. But what does the guru do? What does the teacher do? In fact, he does neither. Neither he raises him nor he supports him. Okay? He discourages the tamasic recoil and the tendency to renunciation and enjoins the continuance of action. Enjoins, advises, encourages. Okay? The word injunction, the noun, and here enjoin is the verb. Enjoins, advises, encourages him to, pushes him towards the continuance of action. Don't give up action. And even of the same fierce and terrible action. Not only ordinary action, but even this horrible action that you do, don't give up. Face it. But now face it not from your level of ignorance, but from a level of knowledge. Then you will not be disturbed anymore like you're being disturbed now. But he points the disciple towards another and inner renunciation. That's exactly the difference we were talking of. Giving up the physical world is one, but cutting the link of desire and renouncing the attachment to life inside, psychologically. There are 2 ways of renunciation. So that's what he is saying, inner renunciation, which is a real issue from this crisis. So the problem to the solution to the problems of life is not a recoil from the world itself, but a delinking, a what is called a nishkama karma. You have to go to nishkama karma. Okay? Cutting of the links with the world inside you and cutting you to act, okay? Which is the real issue from his crisis and the way towards the soul's superiority to the world nature. Now, world nature, so they are using, what does it mean? World nature is the lower apara prakriti. And what is that? Level 1. Okay? Mind, life, and body. This is level 1, and that's the world nature, where Sattva, Rajas, Tamas are the 3 modes of nature, and you have to go above that. So when you leave that, you become Trigunatita, and you go beyond world nature, then you are entering into the divine nature. You are beginning to enter into the divine nature. Okay, Paraprakriti. Okay, and yet it's calm and self-possessed action in the world. When we are identified with the body mind life, our action is full of energy, but also desire, attachment, and ego. But when you are outside your body mind life and you have gone not in world nature but in spiritual nature, then your action can become absolutely calm, quiet, and not at all disturbed. This is what Sridhar is saying. So the last sentence very clear. Not a physical asceticism, but an inner ascesis. Ascesis, the word is a Greek word, and Sridhar, you know very well, he was very, very fond of Greek. Okay, so ascesis is a purification, inner purification by suffering and by a tapasya. So you could use the word ascesis as a tapasya. Not a physical asceticism, but an inner tapasya is the teaching of the Gita. So that completes the chapter on battle of the life and the man and the battle of life. So, but he still continues with the war, question of violence in the physical world. This is the last chapter of the problem of violence in the physical world. Yeah? It's a usually people.
Rangana, ascesis,
Yeah, tell me.
meaning is not clear. What is
Okay, so let's do one thing. We'll check the dictionary for the exact meaning. Okay. And
I
if
don't get. I've not got it in my Oxford dictionary. Ascesis.
no, you won't, because it's not an English word. But sometimes they give it, okay? So I'll tell you, let me see if I get in mine, okay? So I'm seeing the dictionary. I go to Chrome and I type for that. I say ascesis. Askesis. Meaning in English. It is there, okay? So it says the practice of severe self-discipline. That's why I said tapasya. Okay, the practice of severe self-discipline, typically for religious reasons. Okay,
Okay.
Pallu, clear?
Yes, Rangada.
It is, you can say tapasya. No? The practice of severe self-discipline, typically for religious reasons. That means it's a purificatory process. You purify yourself through that. Okay.
Okay, Rangada.
Yeah. So, and also it is pronounced. Okay, let me see.
Ascesis.
Ascesis.
Okay, that's how we.
Ascesis.
Ascesis is saying. Okay, it's not ascesis.
Ascesis.
That is how it is pronounced. Ascesis. Because it's Greek origin. Okay. Okay, so that completes the chapter on the, and we have now the third chapter on the Aryan fighter. How should he fight? How should he conduct his the creed of the Kshatriya? He has, suppose you are appointed a soldier, and in fact all over the world, mostly with nations which have got small population of 50 million or so, 50, 60 million, okay, even in Germany where there is 100 million, they have this compulsory military training. So when you are military training, how do you conduct yourself? The creed of the Aryan fighter. Interestingly, you may know that even our Pavitrata, he was there as a soldier in the First World War. You know that? Yeah. And it is very interesting. Later on, there was a German man who used to come here, and he has done some translations also of many of Surrender's books. And they were against each other in the First World War. I forget his name. He was there. He used to come regularly to the ashram. So, how do you face and what is your attitude towards violence in the war? So, it is 8:31. We have got 4 minutes. So tell me, what do we do? Do we read the first we start reading the first para, or do we leave it for next time? Tell me. Decide, all of you. We can do either. Yeah.
Basically, the Gita is regarding the karma only. It is not the war on the field. It is war inside you.
That's right.
The entire teaching.
Yeah. The action outside is not so important. What you do is not important. What what is your attitude within yourself? That is why this problem, which is so commonly discussed about vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism, also is the same. Okay, you see, it is the attitude with which you eat that is more important than what you are eating. Note interestingly, yeah, tell me.
Okay. No, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that it is no importance. There is an importance. Of course, there is no doubt that vegetarian food is far superior, more sattvic than the meat diet. There is no doubt about it. But it's a minor truth. It's not a major truth. The major truth is with what attitude are you eating? You can eat vegetarian food with great amount of greed. And that's worse than eating meat without any desire. So there are so many grades.
But here,
Yeah, tell me.
but here it is not a question of greed and all that. No, vegetarian, non-vegetarian is not about greed. It is about killing a um, lesser
right.
evolved
Yes.
Entity.
Tarika, you are right, and that's why I said minor truth. You know?
hmm.
The major truth is something else. No? So that's why you are right. That it is not. It is nothing to do with this. But I am telling you what the attitude towards violence in the world should be. I gave the attitude of towards not violence, but of the principle of vegetarianism and non-vegetarian. I just gave an example. Okay? So certainly nobody will tell you that um, a, a vegetarian diet is subtler and more sattvic. Nobody will deny that. In fact, even the Gita discusses that. Huh? The very interesting sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. So the sattvic is definitely vegetarian, and the tamasic and rajasic is the meat eating. That also is very clearly discussed in the Gita. Okay.
Then we loosely say that people, if all people become vegetarians, then there will not be enough food in the world. So it's non-vegetarian.
That problem exists even without, okay? In fact, there is a shortage of food sometimes, no? And famine sets in.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, we'll stop here now because it's 1 minute only to go. Next time we take up the creed of the Aryan fighter. Okay? This is the last chapter on the problem of violence in the world. How do we approach the problem of violence in the world? It is not to be approached in the Gandhian spirit because you are exaggerating one side of truth. Of course, non-violence is better than violence, but that doesn't mean to say that you will not notice that there is violence in the world. Okay, so it's an exaggeration of one side of truth. Non-violence is an exaggeration. There are many religions which stress ahimsa, and even our Hindu religions also. Ahimsa is very important. It depends at which level you are. Okay, so we stop here today. And Sunki, you'll put the on chat, you put it down, okay?
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
Okay, Urva Rangada, bonjourne.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.
Have a nice day.